He told me, "This is what Dad would have wanted." So I handed him the letter that proved otherwise. The November wind carried the scent of burning leaves through the streets of Detroit as I sat in my old Ford pickup truck, staring at the modest two-story house where I had raised my family for 37 years. The weathered brick facade and the small front porch where my late wife Margaret used to tend her flower boxes looked exactly the same, but everything else in my world had changed dramatically since her passing 8 months ago. I was 68 years old, recently retired from the Detroit Police Department after 42 years of service, and now facing a family crisis that threatened to destroy everything Margaret and I had worked so hard to build together. My son David sat in the passenger seat next to me, his expensive suit and polished shoes a stark contrast to my worn jeans and flannel shirt, tapping impatiently on his smartphone while occasionally glancing at his Rolex watch with the kind of agitation that had become his trademark during family gatherings. At 43, David had become a successful corporate lawyer specializing in real estate development, earning more money in a single year than I had made during my entire police career, but somewhere along the way he had lost the values and compassion that Margaret and I had tried to instill in him during his childhood. If this story is touching your heart, please comment below where you're watching from, give this video a like, and subscribe to our channel because we truly help families going through these difficult situations. Your support helps us continue sharing these stories of overcoming adversity and finding strength in the darkest moments. The reason for this uncomfortable conversation in my truck was David's latest scheme to convince me to sell the family home and move into what he called a more appropriate living situation for someone of my age and circumstances. He had been pushing this agenda relentlessly since Margaret's funeral, arguing that maintaining a large house was impractical for a widowed retiree on a fixed income, and that the proceeds from the sale could be invested to provide better long-term financial security for my remaining years. What David didn't understand, or perhaps chose to ignore, was that this house represented far more than just real estate or financial assets. Every room contained decades of memories. The kitchen where Margaret had cooked thousands of family meals, the living room where we had watched our children take their first steps, the basement workshop where I had taught David and his sister Jennifer how to use tools and fix things with their own hands, and the backyard where we had hosted countless birthday parties, graduation celebrations, and holiday gatherings that had strengthened the bonds of our extended family and neighborhood. Community. Margaret and I had purchased this house in 1987 when David was just 6 years old and Jennifer was 4. Using the modest down payment we had saved from my police officer salary and her income as an elementary school teacher. We had chosen this particular neighborhood because of its strong sense of community, good schools, and the proximity to both our families, wanting to raise our children in an environment where they would learn the importance of helping neighbors, respecting elders, and contributing positively to the community around them. Over the years, we had invested not just money but countless hours of labor into improving and maintaining the property. I had personally installed new flooring, painted every room multiple times, upgraded the electrical system, and landscaped the yard with flowers and vegetables that Margaret loved to tend during the warmer months. Every improvement had been done with care and attention to detail, not just to increase the property value but to create a warm and welcoming home where our family could gather and create lasting memories together. The house had been the setting for some of the most important moments in our family's history. Christmas mornings when the children were young and excited about presents under the tree, birthday parties with homemade cakes and friends from the neighborhood, graduation celebrations when both David and Jennifer completed high school and college, and later, the quiet dinners when they brought their own families to visit and introduce their children to the grandparents who loved them unconditionally. During Margaret's final illness, this house had become our sanctuary and her refuge from the medical appointments, hospital stays, and treatments that defined her last 2 years. She had insisted on spending as much time as possible in familiar surroundings, drawing comfort from the routine of daily life in the home we had shared for so many decades. And I had gladly arranged for hospice care that allowed her to remain in the bedroom where we had slept together for 37 years of marriage. After Margaret's death, the house had become both a source of comfort and painful reminders of loss. I found myself talking to her empty chair during meals, expecting to hear her voice calling from the kitchen, and sometimes waking in the middle of the night reaching across the bed for the warm presence that would never be there again. Yet despite the loneliness and grief, I also felt her presence in every corner of our home, and the thought of leaving seemed like abandoning the last tangible connection to our life together. David's campaign to convince me to sell had begun subtly at first, with casual comments about the challenges of maintaining a large property at my age and helpful suggestions about assisted living facilities that offered various levels of care and social activities for retired seniors. His arguments were always presented as concern for my well-being and practical considerations about safety, maintenance costs, and the wisdom of liquidating assets while the real estate market was favorable for sellers. However, as the months passed and I continued to resist his suggestions, David's approach became increasingly aggressive and manipulative. He began bringing real estate listings to our weekly dinners, calculating potential profits from selling the house and investing the proceeds, and making appointments with retirement communities without my permission, insisting that I should at least tour the facilities to see what options were available for someone in my situation. The breaking point came during a particularly tense family dinner when David announced that he had already contacted a real estate agent about conducting a market analysis of the property value and had scheduled an appointment for the following week to discuss listing strategies and potential selling prices. When I expressed anger about these unauthorized actions, David played what he clearly thought was his trump card in this ongoing battle of wills. "Dad," he said with the confident tone he used in boardroom negotiations, "this is what Mom would have wanted. She always worried about you being able to manage everything alone, and she would want you to make the smart financial decision instead of being stubborn about staying in a house that's too big and expensive for one person to maintain properly." His words hit me like a physical blow, not just because of their presumption about Margaret's wishes, but because of the calculating way he was using my grief and love for my deceased wife to manipulate me into compliance with his agenda. The implication that I was being selfish or irresponsible by wanting to remain in my own home was insulting enough, but claiming to speak for Margaret's desires when he had barely visited during her illness was particularly cruel and dishonest. I stood up from the dinner table and walked to the bedroom where Margaret and I had kept our important documents and personal papers. From the top drawer of her dresser, I retrieved a sealed envelope that I had been carrying like a talisman since her death, never quite ready to share its contents, but knowing that someday the right moment would come to reveal what my beloved wife had actually wanted regarding our home and my future living arrangements. The envelope contained a handwritten letter that Margaret had written during her final weeks, when she was still clear-minded but physically weak from the cancer that was slowly taking her away from us. She had given it to me with instructions to open it only after her death and to use its contents as guidance when making important decisions about my life without her. For 8 months, I had kept it close but unopened, afraid that reading her final words might make the loss too painful to bear. That evening, with David sitting smugly at the kitchen table convinced that he had played the perfect psychological card to break down my resistance to his plans, I finally opened Margaret's letter and read aloud the words she had written specifically for situations like this one. Her message was clear, loving, and completely contrary to everything David had claimed about her supposed wishes for my future. "My darling Bill," the letter began in Margaret's familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I'm no longer there to argue with David about his ridiculous ideas for your retirement. I know he means well, but that boy has always thought money and efficiency were more important than love and memories, probably because he's spent too many years around corporate lawyers who measure everything in dollars and cents instead of human happiness." Margaret's words continued with specific instructions about the house and my living arrangements. "Please don't let David bully you into selling our home unless you truly want to leave. That house isn't just property. It's the place where we raised our children, celebrated our victories, weathered our storms, and created the family legacy that I hope will continue for generations. The financial aspects don't matter nearly as much as your comfort and happiness during whatever time you have left." She had also written about David's tendency to use emotional manipulation to get his way, warning me to be suspicious of any arguments that claimed to represent her wishes without actual evidence of her feelings. "David has always assumed he knows what's best for everyone else," she wrote, "but he's never been good at listening to what people actually want. Don't let him put words in my mouth or make you feel guilty for living your life the way that brings you peace and joy." The letter went on for 3 pages, covering various aspects of my retirement and future plans, but the central message was unmistakably clear. Margaret wanted me to make decisions based on my own needs and desires rather than external pressure from family members who thought they knew better than I did about what would make me happy and fulfilled during my remaining years. As I read these passages aloud, I watched David's expression change from confidence to embarrassment to defensive anger as he realized that his manipulation had backfired spectacularly. The woman he had claimed to speak for had actually anticipated his behavior and specifically warned against exactly the kind of emotional blackmail he had been using to pressure me into compliance with his plans. She didn't understand the financial implications, David protested weakly, trying to salvage some credibility from his collapsed argument. Mom was always more sentimental than practical about money matters, and she couldn't have anticipated how expensive it would become to maintain that house on your pension income. I folded the letter carefully and returned it to its envelope before responding to David's desperate attempt to dismiss his mother's clearly expressed wishes as uninformed or irrelevant. Your mother understood money better than you think, I said quietly. She also understood that some things are worth more than their cash value, including the importance of staying connected to the community where we built our life together. The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary, as I explained to David that his constant pressure about selling the house was causing me stress and resentment that was damaging our relationship. I acknowledged his concerns about my well-being and financial security, but I also made it clear that I was fully capable of making my own decisions about where and how to spend my remaining years. David eventually left that evening without the agreement he had expected to extract from me, and our relationship remained strained for several weeks afterward as he struggled to accept that his manipulation had failed and that I was not going to be bullied into selling the family home. During this period, I began to question whether I had failed as a father by allowing my son to develop such a calculating and disrespectful approach to family relationships. However, the situation began to improve when Jennifer, who lived in Denver with her own family, came for an extended visit during the holidays and witnessed firsthand the tension between David and me regarding the house sale. As the middle child and natural peacemaker in our family, Jennifer had always been better at understanding emotional nuances and finding compromise solutions that respected everyone's needs and feelings. Jennifer listened carefully to both sides of the conflict and eventually helped David understand that his approach had been counterproductive and hurtful, regardless of his good intentions about protecting my financial interests. She pointed out that treating me like an incompetent child who couldn't make his own decisions was disrespectful and damaging to the trust and affection that should characterize our family relationships. More importantly, Jennifer helped David recognize that his mother's letter represented not just Margaret's wishes, but also her deep understanding of my personality and needs as someone who drew strength and comfort from familiar surroundings and established routines. She explained that forcing me to leave the house where I felt closest to Margaret's memory would likely cause more harm than good, regardless of any potential financial benefits. The turning point in our relationship came when David finally acknowledged that he had been projecting his own values and priorities onto me without really considering what would actually make me happiest and most comfortable during my retirement years. He apologized for using his mother's memory as a weapon in our disagreement and admitted that he had been more concerned about potential inheritance implications than about my actual well-being and emotional needs. With Jennifer's help, we developed a compromise plan that addressed David's legitimate concerns about home maintenance and emergency preparedness, while allowing me to remain in the house that held so many precious memories. David agreed to hire a reliable handyman service to handle major repairs and seasonal maintenance tasks that might be too physically demanding for me to manage alone. We also established a monthly check-in system where Jennifer or David would visit regularly to ensure that I was managing well independently and to provide assistance with any challenges that might arise. This arrangement gave them peace of mind about my safety and well-being while respecting my autonomy and desire to remain in familiar surroundings that brought me comfort during the grief process. Additionally, we created a practical emergency plan that included updated medical information, contact lists for neighbors and friends who could provide immediate assistance if needed, and clear procedures for handling various types of household emergencies. These preparations addressed the legitimate safety concerns that had motivated some of David's pressure while avoiding the drastic solution of forcing me to abandon my home. Over time, David began to appreciate the wisdom of Margaret's letter and the importance of respecting my emotional needs as well as my practical requirements. He started spending more time at the house during his visits, helping with small projects and repairs while listening to my stories about the memories associated with different rooms and features of the property. These conversations helped David reconnect with his own childhood memories of growing up in the house and began to understand why leaving would represent such a significant loss for me. He started to see the house not just as a financial asset or maintenance burden, but as a repository of family history and a tangible link to the relationships and experiences that had shaped all of our lives. 1 year after the confrontation about Margaret's letter, David brought his own children to spend a weekend at their grandfather's house, giving them opportunities to play in the same backyard where their father had learned to ride a bicycle and climb trees. Watching his children explore the house and hearing their excited questions about family photos and mementos seemed to reinforce David's growing appreciation for the intangible values that made our home worth preserving. During that visit, David found some of his old school projects and sports trophies that Margaret had carefully preserved in the basement, and I watched his expression soften as he remembered the pride and encouragement his parents had shown for his achievements throughout his childhood. These rediscovered memories helped him understand that the house represented not just my attachment to the past, but also the foundation for his own successful life and career. 2 years later, when David's marriage went through a difficult period and he needed a place to stay while working through personal issues, he asked if he could temporarily move back into his childhood bedroom. Living in the house again as an adult gave him a new perspective on the comfort and stability that familiar surroundings could provide during times of stress and uncertainty. During those months, David experienced firsthand the sense of peace and continuity that I had been trying to explain to him, and he began to understand why Margaret's letter had been so wise in predicting what would be best for my emotional well-being. He saw how the daily routines of maintaining the house gave structure and purpose to my retirement years, and how the connections with longtime neighbors provided social interaction and community support that couldn't be replaced by any institutional care facility. David's temporary residence also gave us opportunities to rebuild our relationship on a more equal and respectful foundation. Working together on home improvement projects and sharing meals in the kitchen where he had grown up helped us move past the conflict about the house sale and develop a stronger adult friendship based on mutual understanding and appreciation for each other's perspectives and needs. 3 years after the evening when I read Margaret's letter aloud, David publicly acknowledged at a family gathering that his mother had been absolutely right about my need to remain in the family home. He thanked me for standing firm against his pressure and explained to other family members how much he had learned about the difference between practical solutions and wise solutions when dealing with complex family decisions. Today, 5 years after Margaret's death, I still live happily in our family home, surrounded by memories and maintained with help from my children and a reliable network of service providers who handle the more demanding maintenance tasks. The house continues to serve as the gathering place for family celebrations and holidays, just as Margaret had hoped when she wrote her letter encouraging me to resist pressure to sell. David has become one of my strongest supporters in maintaining the house, often bringing his children for weekend visits and helping with seasonal projects that keep the property in excellent condition. His transformation from someone who saw the house as a burden to someone who appreciates it as a family treasure reflects his growth in understanding the difference between financial value and emotional worth. Margaret's letter, which I keep framed on my bedroom dresser where I can see it every morning, continues to guide my decisions about retirement and reminds me daily that the people who love us most truly want us to be happy rather than simply financially secure or practically efficient. Her wisdom about resisting pressure from well-meaning family members who don't fully understand our emotional needs has proven invaluable in maintaining my independence and dignity during the challenging years of widowhood. The house that David once insisted I should sell has become the foundation for stronger family relationships and a more meaningful retirement than any institutional living facility could have provided. Margaret's final gift to me wasn't just permission to stay in our home, but also the strength to stand up for my own needs and the wisdom to recognize that love sometimes means saying no to people who think they know what's best for us. Our story has become a reminder within our extended family and circle of friends that major life decisions should be made by the people who will actually live with the consequences, rather than by those who believe their practical concerns outweigh the emotional and psychological factors that contribute to genuine happiness and well-being during our most vulnerable years. The letter that proved David wrong about what his mother wanted has become a treasured family document that will be passed down to future generations as an example of Margaret's wisdom and insight into human nature. Her words continue to influence family discussions about caring for elderly relatives, reminding us that respect for individual autonomy and emotional needs should always take priority over abstract concerns about efficiency or financial optimization. If this story has touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to comment below and let us know where you are watching from, as well as your thoughts on family dynamics like this. Every perspective matters, because stories like these remind us that while families may face struggles, challenges, and even heartbreak, there is always an opportunity for healing, connection, and growth. By sharing your own reflections, you not only add to the conversation but also create a ripple effect of encouragement for others who may be experiencing something similar. When you engage, Whether it's through commenting, liking, or subscribing, you are helping us build a space where families can feel less alone and more supported. Many people silently carry burdens within their homes, and often just hearing that someone else understands can provide an enormous sense of relief and hope. This channel is more than a platform for stories. It's a community where resilience, compassion, and solidarity take center stage. Your support allows us to continue creating and sharing content that uplifts, inspires, and shines a light on the very real challenges that families go through. We believe that even in the most difficult circumstances, there are lessons to be learned and strength to be found. And together, by engaging with these stories, we can remind one another that no family has to navigate their journey in isolation. So please, if this message resonates with you, don't hesitate to leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you're not just supporting us. You're standing with countless families around the world who find courage and comfort in knowing that they are part of a wider circle of understanding and care. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping us continue to share these powerful stories of resilience and hope. If this story has touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to comment below and let us know where you are watching from, as well as your thoughts on family dynamics like this. Every perspective matters, because stories like these remind us that while families may face struggles, challenges, and even heartbreak, there is always an opportunity for healing, connection, and growth. By sharing your own reflections, you not only add to the conversation but also create a ripple effect of encouragement for others who may be experiencing something similar. When you engage, whether it's through commenting, liking, or subscribing, you are helping us build a space where families can feel less alone and more supported. Many people silently carry burdens within their homes, and often just hearing that someone else understands can provide an enormous sense of relief and hope. This channel is more than a platform for stories. It's a community where resilience, compassion, and solidarity take center stage. Your support allows us to continue creating and sharing content that uplifts, inspires, and shines a light on the very real challenges that families go through. We believe that even in the most difficult circumstances, there are lessons to be learned and strength to be found. And together, by engaging with these stories, we can remind one another that no family has to navigate their journey in isolation. So please, if this message resonates with you, don't hesitate to leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you're not just supporting us. You're standing with countless families around the world who find courage and comfort in knowing that they are part of a wider circle of understanding and care. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping us continue to share these powerful stories of resilience and hope.